August 20th, 1987 marked a tragic day for North Greenbush, as the lifeless body of a young woman was found on the muddy banks of the Hudson River. This unfortunate victim was later identified as Diana Desso, a 19-year-old who had been seen leaving her boyfriend's Albany apartment in a distressed state the previous evening. While the identification process was swift, the investigation into her murder proved to be a lengthy and challenging endeavor, spanning a daunting 17-year period. To unravel the mysteries surrounding this chilling incident, we must retrace our steps to the very location where it all began. North Greenbush, situated in upstate New York, is a charming town renowned for its picturesque beauty. Nestled along the eastern banks of the Hudson River, this suburban community offers a serene and family-oriented environment. With a population of just over 13,000, North Greenbush embodies the essence of small-town living. However, even in such an idyllic setting, dark secrets can lurk beneath the surface, serving as a reminder that no place is immune to the presence of heinous crimes. On that fateful day, August 20th, 1987, the New York State Police Department received a distress call from a concerned passerby who had stumbled upon a lifeless body on the banks of the Hudson River in North Greenbush, New York. John Murray, a seasoned homicide detective from the NYSP, promptly responded to the call, making his way down the trails leading to the river. As he approached the scene, he was met with the sight of a motionless woman lying face down, partially submerged in the water, her body resting upon the muddy embankment of the Hudson River. During the initial examination, all indications pointed towards a homicide. It seemed that someone had intentionally tried to dispose of the victim's body in the river, but their plan was thwarted when it got caught on a piece of wood near the riverbank. The detective was disheartened to find no identifying information except for a brush. An urgent bulletin was promptly issued, and the news was broadcasted on local television channels. Detective Murray held on to hope that someone would step forward to identify this unfortunate victim. Mary Ann Desso, a resident of Colony, New York, found watching the news on television particularly distressing as she hadn't heard from her 19-year-old daughter, Diana Desso, since the previous night. Fearing the worst, the family contacted the police, who connected them with the investigators working on the Hudson River case, initiating the identification process. Once the identification was completed, the investigators eagerly awaited the autopsy results for further insights. The report confirmed that Diana had been strangled and also revealed the presence of unidentified bodily fluid on her body, along with possible signs of assault. Unfortunately, no additional evidence pertaining to the killer could be obtained. Detectives even tried to retrace Diana's steps before her murder. It was discovered that on the evening of August 19, 1987, Diana had a heated argument with her undisclosed boyfriend. In a fit of anger, she stormed out of his apartment in Albany, New York. Sadly, this was the last time anyone saw her alive. Although the boyfriend was not considered a suspect, the detectives were unable to identify any other individuals on their list of suspects. Consequently, the case eventually went cold, leaving her grieving family longing for justice. In 2004, a remarkable 17 years after the discovery of Diana Desso's murder, the case was reopened by Dave Madden, a senior investigator from the New York State Police Department. By this point in time, advancements in DNA technology had progressed enough for Madden to send the unidentified bodily fluid sample to the New York State Police Crime Lab for further examination. Dr. Allison Eastman, a forensic analyst with the New York Police, conducted thorough tests and successfully generated a complete STR-DNA profile from the sample. On May 24, 2004, she entered the profile into CODIS, leading to a groundbreaking revelation. Not only did the profile already exist in the database, but the individual associated with it was already serving time in prison. The bodily fluid matched that of a convicted felon named Ray Killer. Although Killer had no apparent connection to Diana, his criminal history made him a prime suspect in this case. In 1989, Keller had committed a violent assault against a 16-year-old girl, resulting in a prison sentence of 8 to 25 years. Following this significant breakthrough, Dave Madden joined forces with two other NYSP detectives, Steve Ortiz and Deborah Komar, to pursue this lead. Before directly engaging with the suspect, the detectives decided to first speak with the now adult victim of Killar's previous crime. While she had survived the attack, it shared unsettling similarities with Diana Disso's murder, which had occurred just 2 years earlier. Both victims had been assaulted and strangled. Although there was no direct link between these two cases, the importance of Killar's conviction cannot be overstated in relation to Diana's murder. Without it, Killar's DNA may have never been present in the system. Armed with substantial evidence connecting Ray Killar to Diana's case, investigators were ready to interrogate him about her murder. However, they still needed his confession to strengthen their case. There was a possibility that Killar could claim to have had a personal relationship with Diana, but deny any involvement in her murder. Prior to directly approaching Ray Killar, the detectives sought guidance from psychologist Richard Hamill, who had spent 20 years conversing with convicts. They were hopeful that Hamill's expertise would assist them in delving into Ray Killar's psyche and encouraging him to open up about the case. On December 17, 2004, Detective Madden and Ortiz conducted an interview with Ray Killar. The detectives explicitly informed him that they were aware of his encounter with Diana Disso in 1987, but Killar denied recognizing the name. Despite Killar's repeated denials and lies, the forensic evidence clearly placed him at the scene with Diana. Therefore, when the detectives decided to reveal the trump card they held, the DNA evidence, Killar finally broke down. With the audio recording in progress, Killar recounted the events of August 1987 when Diana Disso tragically lost her life. Killar admitted that on that August evening, 17 years prior, he was under the influence of both alcohol and drugs. He stated that while driving around, he noticed a young woman hitchhiking along Central Avenue in Albany and chose to pull over. Killar then drove the car to a wooded area in North Greenbush near the Hudson River. After assaulting the vulnerable young woman, Killar unexpectedly allowed her to get dressed. However, it was a comment made by Diana Disso at that moment that may have tragically sealed her fate. She mentioned that she was going to tell. Killar went on to explain that he was consumed by rage and continued to tighten his grip on Diana's neck until she stopped resisting. Convinced that she would succumb to his attack, Killar decided to dispose of her lifeless body in the river. Through a combination of patience and effective interrogation techniques, Detectives Madden and Ortiz achieved the confession they had been seeking, just as psychologist Hamill had predicted. Rensselaer County District Attorney Patricia D'Angelis and Deputy District Attorney Joe Abalov, who handled the prosecution, were dedicated to obtaining justice for Diana's family above all else. In 2005, Ray Killar ultimately pleaded guilty to second-degree murder before Rensselaer County Court Judge Patrick J. McGrath. He was sentenced to 22 years to life in state prison on July 5, 2005, with the term to be served consecutively to his previous sentence. Although he appeared remorseful, the harsh truth remains that he cannot reverse the tragic loss of Diana or erase the suffering he caused her family.
In February 2010, a young man named German Clarich, who was 19 years old, went missing from the city of Arkansas. Tragically, his lifeless body was discovered 5 days later, on February 6th, along a rural road in Butler County, Kansas. The case remained unresolved for a lengthy period of 12 years until recently, when the perpetrator was finally apprehended. It is indeed a distressing situation to ponder upon the reasons behind the killing of such a young individual. Equally perplexing is the question of why it took so long to solve this cold case. Arkansas City, situated in Cowley County, Kansas, is a remarkable place to reside in. It boasts a picturesque location at the confluence of the Arkansas and Walnut Rivers, making it an ideal spot for nature enthusiasts. The city also serves as a vital railway junction, housing repair shops and functioning as a significant cargo hub. The cost of living in Arkansas City is relatively affordable, and its residents are known for their warm hospitality. Moreover, the city offers a pleasant climate, excellent dining options, and a wide range of entertainment activities to cater to diverse interests. However, it is important to acknowledge that Arkansas City, like any other place, has its share of challenges. Unfortunately, it experiences a higher rate of violent crimes, compared to many other areas in the United States, with 7.1 incidents per 1,000 residents. Additionally, it ranks fifth in terms of property crime rates, with a rate of 26.5. These statistics highlight the need for continued efforts to address and reduce crime in the city. Furthermore, it is worth noting that Arkansas City was the backdrop for German Clarich's disappearance in 2010. Born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, German had a close-knit family consisting of his mother, Ana Mariscal, and three brothers, Agustin Mariscal, Facundo Martin Rodriguez, and Luciano Rodriguez. After relocating from Argentina to New Jersey with his mother, German eventually settled in Wichita, Kansas, where his brother was employed. He attended Wichita West High School before enrolling at Cowley College in Arkansas City. German, affectionately known as Jersey due to his New Jersey accent, was a young man with his whole life ahead of him. During his time in college, he was romantically involved with Shauna McKee, a Quick Trip gas station employee. According to Shauna, they were living together at the time and had plans to move into a new home soon. A staff member at the college where Clarich studied described him as a gentleman who was driven and ambitious. Despite appearing to have a promising future, tragedy struck unexpectedly. On January 29, 2010, after a conversation about their relationship, German left his flat. Little did Shauna know that this would be their final encounter. For the next 2 days, German's whereabouts remained unknown, prompting his mother to file a missing person report on February 1st when she couldn't reach him. The police immediately initiated a search, and on February 6th, his lifeless body was discovered in a culvert east of Augusta, Butler County, Kansas, by a woman walking along a rural road. She reported the finding to the authorities after noticing his body near the edge of a bridge in the 8,000 block of Southwest Boyer Road. This location, situated southwest of El Dorado and approximately a 45 to 50-minute drive from German's residence, was extremely rural and difficult to spot. Investigators believe that the person responsible for placing his body there was familiar with the area due to its secluded nature. Sergeant Sharp of the Butler County Sheriff's Office expressed suspicion surrounding the case from the very beginning. One peculiar aspect was the condition of German's shoes. Despite the muddy and dirty surroundings where his body was found, his shoes remained remarkably clean and white. This led investigators to conclude that German was not killed in that specific area, but rather somewhere else, with his body subsequently being disposed of in the isolated muddy track. Upon examining the body, it became evident to the investigators that German had suffered a fatal gunshot wound to the face. However, due to the cold weather during that time of year, the body had not decomposed significantly, making it difficult to determine the exact date and time of death. Based on their estimation, German could have been deceased for approximately 1 to 2 days before being discovered. This revelation puzzled those who knew him well, as he was not the type of person to ignore attempts to reach out to him for such an extended period. Nevertheless, the police's estimation suggested that German may have still been alive as of February 3rd or 4th, indicating that he had intentionally been avoiding contact with others since his absence on January 29th, 2010. During their search for clues, the investigators found German's wallet in his pockets, ruling out the possibility of a failed robbery and confirming that he had been murdered for unknown reasons. After speaking with German's devastated family, the police learned that on the day he went missing, he had left in his 1990 Toyota Celica. Additionally, all phone activity ceased on January 30th, 2010. When asked by Eyewitness News about German's involvement with drugs or illegal activities, the police did not provide a definitive answer, but believed that he may have associated with the wrong crowd, as there seemed to be no strong motive for his homicide otherwise. The police also interviewed Shauna, German's girlfriend, who was deeply shocked and unable to comprehend why anyone would want to harm him. Although she could not provide much information, she did share some memories of their relationship. In a subsequent interview with the Wichita Eagle newspaper on February 9, 2010, Shauna discussed their situation further, revealing that she and German had frequently argued, leading him to temporarily move out of their shared residence in order to clear his mind before considering moving back in with her. The search persisted, and after approximately 4 months of investigation, in June 2010, German's car was discovered on East 21st Street in Wichita by a mail carrier who promptly reported it to the police. The location was roughly 30 minutes away from the college where German was a student. Nevertheless, investigators were puzzled as to why it took so long for someone to notice the car, especially since the police had made the missing report public immediately after he was reported missing. They suspected that the car had been there throughout the investigation, and it was indeed strange that no one had reported it earlier. However, German's friends had a different perspective. They claimed that they had passed through the area numerous times and had never seen the car in the neighborhood before. Despite this, the car did not yield any information relevant to the case. Upon further inquiry, one of German's friends mentioned that it was out of character for German to visit the neighborhood where the car was discovered. The situation was suspicious and perplexing for the police, especially since German's body was found far from the location of the car. It was evident that German had entered a different vehicle, but the reason for doing so when he had his own car remained unclear. Many questions arose, yet the police were left with mere conjectures and no concrete answers. According to German's friends, someone must have picked him up from elsewhere, harmed him, transported his body to the rural area, disposed of it, and then returned the car to the neighborhood. While this theory seemed plausible, it was challenging to substantiate as no evidence, not even fingerprints, was found in his car. The absence of fingerprint traces was perplexing, as they can endure for a significant period if the surface is not tampered with. One of German's friends suggested that German must have been acquainted with the individual or individuals he traveled with, as he was cautious about getting into a vehicle with strangers unless compelled to do so. Therefore, it was presumed that he was either held against his will or trusted the individuals with whom he shared the ride. The police conducted extensive interrogations of individuals in and around the city who were acquainted with German, but unfortunately, no significant leads were uncovered. Despite the lack of suspects, the investigators did include several individuals mentioned as German's associates in their reports as potential suspects. Captain Morgan stated, "We have spoken to some of these associates and gathered information. We still consider them as suspects in this case." Sergeant Sharp revealed that there were numerous rumors circulating following German's untimely demise. He believed that German had been leading a secret life unbeknownst to his loved ones, and that nobody had any knowledge of his activities prior to his disappearance. During the course of their investigation, the police learned from German's friends that he had been associating with individuals he referred to as bad people, and that there was a particular house he frequented. However, the search of the house yielded no evidence related to German's case. With a dearth of leads and evidence to pursue, the case gradually grew cold. After more than a decade of remaining unsolved, the case finally reached its climax in 2022. The police announced that they had successfully apprehended the culprits responsible for the 12-year-old cold case involving the 19-year-old German Lucille Clarich. However, the police did not disclose any information regarding how they were able to identify the killers. Authorities stated that they reopened the investigation into German's murder in 2021 after new evidence emerged, but they declined to provide specific details to news outlets. It was revealed that a couple was responsible for the murder of German Lucille Clarich. Local law enforcement officials, along with deputies from the Butler County Sheriff's Office in Kansas, apprehended Candace Valadez on July 30th and Christopher Valadez on July 31st. Both individuals were taken into custody on Sunday, July 31st, 2022, and are now facing murder charges in connection with the death of German Lucille Clarich. They have since been extradited to Kansas to stand trial for the murder charges. The couple, both aged 32, was apprehended in South Carolina during the weekend. They resided in a 5-bedroom house outside of Greenville. Christopher Valadez faced charges of second-degree murder, while Candace was charged with aiding a felon. Shauna McKee, the girlfriend of German, did not respond to interview requests, but did mention on Facebook that she was acquainted with the couple. She disclosed that both Candace and Christopher used to work with her at a gas station chain called Quick Trip in Kansas. However, they transferred immediately after the unfortunate incident involving German. Quick Trip confirmed that Candace still held the position of an area supervisor for the company. They declined to provide further details regarding her current status or length of employment. In September 2022, an affidavit was released, shedding more light on the case and the accused couple. During police interrogation, Christopher Valadez admitted to causing German's death, but claimed it was unintentional. He explained that he accidentally shot German in the face while he was seated on an ottoman. The affidavit revealed that Christopher did not report the incident to the police due to his concerns about the marijuana plants he had growing in the basement of his house. He feared police intervention. The affidavit also documented Christopher's request for assistance in disposing of German's body, accompanied by a threat that failure to comply would result in another body to dispose of. He further disclosed that they placed German's body in a tub and transported it to a rural area where it was eventually discarded in a culvert. Christopher mentioned that they did not wear shoes during the disposal, explaining the absence of shoe prints. The couple was released on bond while awaiting trial, and no further updates on the case have been made public since September 2022.
Our next case takes us to Galt, a city situated in Sacramento County, California. Galt offers its residents a quiet suburban setting, and it is worth mentioning that the majority of the people living in this community are homeowners. It is in Galt that the story of Lucille Hulin unfolds. Not much is known about Lucille's early life, but it is documented that she and her husband, Frank Hulin, moved to Galt from Idaho in 1968. They were proud parents to 2 children, Frank and Henry. By the late 1970s, their sons had grown up and moved away, but Lucille and Frank chose to remain in the neighborhood. They were known for their kindness and affection, treating the children in the area as if they were their own grandchildren. Sean Jacobs, a former neighbor of the Hulins, shared that they were open-hearted and welcoming. He fondly remembered being invited into their home during the summer, where they generously offered cookies and lemonade. Sean emphasized that he had never heard a single unkind word from Lucille. According to others who knew Lucille, she led a simple and humble life. She held a strong devotion to her family and her place of worship, Galt's First Methodist Church. Neighbors affectionately described her as a typical grandmother figure, often spending long hours tending to her garden. However, a significant change occurred in November 1985 when Lucille's husband, Frank, was admitted to a nursing home. As a result, Lucille found herself living alone in the company of her cats. Tragically, almost 2 years later, in October 1987, Frank passed away, succumbing to Alzheimer's disease. This loss deeply affected their entire family. In the midst of these challenging times, Lucille continued to navigate her life on her own. Yet, fate had another tragedy in store. On Friday, May 20th, 1988, Lucille celebrated her 79th birthday, unaware that it would be her last. On the following Sunday, May 22nd, the absence of Lucille from church caused concern among her fellow church members, as she was known to be a regular attendee. The day after, on May 23rd, 2 of Lucille's friends decided to visit her and check on her well-being. They entered her home through a partially open sliding glass door and were shocked to discover Lucille's lifeless body in her bedroom. It was a tragic sight, as the elderly lady had fallen victim to a brutal crime, having been stabbed, assaulted, and strangled to death. The state of her body indicated that some time had passed since her demise, adding to the distressing nature of the situation. Deeply alarmed by what they had found, the friends immediately rushed to the Galt Police Department to report the horrifying scene. The police promptly responded and initiated an investigation into this tragic incident. Upon arrival, the responding officers noticed visible injuries on Lucille's chest. Interestingly, nothing seemed to be missing from her small one-bedroom home, leading investigators to rule out robbery as a motive. Determining the exact time of Lucille's death posed an initial challenge for the detectives. Initially, they believed she had been deceased for up to a week, considering the extent of decomposition. However, friends clarified that they had seen or spoken to Lucille just 3 days before her body was discovered. Subsequent autopsy reports revealed that Lucille had died from 2 fatal stab wounds to her chest. This heinous crime left Lucille's neighbors deeply alarmed, prompting them to take measures to enhance their security, such as locking doors and windows at night and implementing additional safety precautions to protect their families. Throughout the investigation conducted by the Galt police, several witnesses, including neighbors, family members, and church acquaintances, were identified and interviewed. The Sacramento County Sheriff's Office crime scene investigators provided valuable assistance by gathering a substantial amount of evidence from the scene. Despite extensive efforts and collaboration, the police were unable to definitively identify a suspect, even though fingerprints were collected by agents from the California Department of Justice and nail scrapings were successfully preserved from Lucille's body for potential future testing. As time passed, the leads grew colder and the case remained unsolved, leaving the community grappling with uncertainty and many unanswered questions. However, after over 30 years, technology finally caught up, and in January 2022, the county crime lab revisited the DNA evidence that had been stored for decades. Surprisingly, it was the fingernail scrapings that proved to be the key in cracking the case. Detectives entered the DNA profile derived from the genetic material found in the scrapings into the database, leading to a significant breakthrough. The profile matched an individual named Terry Leroy Bramble, who was revealed to have been a longtime resident and transient in Galt. Terry had a history of criminal convictions and had spent years living on the city's streets, often beneath a Highway 99 overpass. Unfortunately, Terry passed away in 2011 at the age of 55 due to natural causes. Interestingly, during the initial investigation into Lucille's death in 1988, Terry had not surfaced as a suspect, according to police records. With both the suspect and Terry now deceased, investigators were left without the means to uncover the motive behind the crime or how Terry and Lucille may have crossed paths prior to her untimely death. Despite the lack of accountability for Lucille's murderer, officials from the Galt police expressed their satisfaction in finally being able to close the case. Although the questions surrounding the motive and circumstances remained unanswered, there was a sense of closure and resolution after more than 30 years of uncertainty. During a news conference, Sacramento County District Attorney Anne Marie Stubert conveyed a statement on behalf of Lucille's surviving son, Henry Hulin, who expressed his sentiments. He disclosed his relief that the case had ultimately been resolved, but also expressed his desire for the responsible individual to still be alive to face the consequences of their actions. Henry emphasized that while this development provided some answers, it could never truly bring closure due to the lasting impact of the tragedy on their lives. On December 15, 1980, 31-year-old Melanie Ura embarked on her usual journey to the Pacoima Hospital in California, where she worked as a nurse. Little did she know that this seemingly ordinary workday would take a sinister turn. At a stoplight, a witness observed 2 men forcefully entering Melanie's pickup truck, abducting her against her will. Tragically, this would be the last time anyone saw her alive. The question remains, who were these 2 men, and what could have motivated them to commit such a heinous act? Pacoima, California, a town deeply rooted in history and natural beauty, derives its name from the Tataviam language, meaning entrance. Established by farmers of Mayan descent around 1500, Pacoima was named after a small stream. The Two Brothers Rock Formation, a unique Southern California landmark shaped by an underground river, adds to the town's charm. Founded by 2 brothers known for their healing practices, Pacoima now boasts one of the cleanest water supplies in the nation, sourced from natural springs. With a population of around 77,000 in 2020, the town sees common petty crimes like property theft and robberies, but hardly any cases of assault or murder. This is where our victim, Melanie Ura, was based. Born on September 9, 1948. Melanie was 31 years old in 1980 when the incident occurred. She worked as a nurse at Pacoma Hospital in Burbank, California, after marrying young and becoming a single mother to her 8-year-old son following the divorce. Described as a hard worker who was always willing to help others, Melanie was dedicated to providing her son with a comfortable life. She rarely missed a shift at work, which raised concerns when she failed to show up on December 15, 1980. Despite attempts to contact her, no one knew her whereabouts. On that fateful night, Melanie never made it to the hospital, prompting worries about her sudden disappearance. The Los Angeles Police Department was notified, fearing the worst. The search for Melanie was in full swing, but it lacked any clear direction or useful information, making it feel like a futile endeavor. However, the following morning, the police made a significant discovery when they found Melanie's burnt truck. The puzzling part was that there were no signs of an accident or any trace of Melanie's whereabouts. It wasn't until an anonymous witness came forward with a crucial piece of information that the case took a different turn. According to the witness, they saw two men forcefully enter Melanie's truck while she was stopped at a red light on her way to work. This revelation transformed the investigation from a missing person case to an abduction case. However, before the focus could fully shift to Melanie's disappearance, another woman named Etta Smith captured everyone's attention. Etta, an employee at an aerospace company, had a regular day at work until she heard about Melanie's case on the radio. Strangely enough, upon hearing the news, she had a sudden vision of Melanie and claimed that Melanie was not being held captive in any house. This psychic experience was a first for Etta, leaving her both certain and astonished. She described the vision as a vivid movie playing in her mind, depicting a canyon, a winding road, shrubbery, hills in the background, and a dirt path leading to something white. Etta believed that the white object symbolized Melanie's nurse's uniform, which she wore when leaving for work. Detective Lee Ryan, assigned to the case, initially had doubts about Etta's credibility as a businesswoman. However, Etta reached out to him, sharing her vision and her belief that Melanie's body would be found in a remote area of the San Fernando Valley called Lopez Canyon, above Lakeview Terrace. Although uncertain about Melanie's condition, Etta was convinced that this was the location where she would be discovered. After reporting her vision to the police, Etta was taken aback when she met with the detectives the next day to search the areas she had seen in her vision using a helicopter. However, instead of waiting for the police, she decided to search for Melanie with a small group of family members. As she drove up the canyon, she felt a strong and distinct sensation, an emotional upheaval that indicated Melanie's presence. This feeling became even stronger in her mind, compelling her to navigate the canyon once again. When she noticed recent tire marks, the same inner turmoil resurfaced, and she sensed a connection between the vehicle and the unfolding events. As they ventured deeper into the canyon near Lakeview Terrace, they stopped again when Etta's daughter spotted something unusual in the foliage. Etta was drawn towards it and came face to face with a figure wearing white nurse's shoes, mirroring the landscape from her earlier visions. The autopsy confirmed that the body was indeed Melanie Ura, revealing a grim story of robbery, assault, and ultimately, murder. Etta's earlier vision aligned perfectly with the forensic findings. Despite this confirmation, the identity of the perpetrators remained unknown. Unfortunately, suspicion began to fall on Etta in light of these developments. Consequently, on the evening following the discovery of Melanie's body, Etta found herself being arrested. The detectives were genuinely suspicious of how she had prior knowledge of the case. Despite being subjected to extensive questioning, Etta consistently maintained her innocence. After hours of interrogation, they decided to administer a polygraph test. Although she successfully passed the test, the detectives informed her that one of them had provided sworn testimony alleging deceptive behavior, including an attempt to manipulate her breathing. Law enforcement began to consider the possibility that if Etta wasn't directly involved in the crime, she may have obtained her information through neighborhood gossip or someone who had knowledge of the details but was unwilling to come forward. It was speculated that her alleged vision may have been motivated by a desire for financial gain. However, A more compassionate interpretation could attribute her failure on the polygraph test to the psychological impact of the traumatic vision and the subsequent search for the body. Nevertheless, she found herself in a perplexing situation, possessing detailed knowledge of the body's whereabouts from an unlikely source. As a result, she was officially charged with murder the following morning. On December 18, 1980, she was arrested and held barefoot in a cell. For 24 hours, she was deprived of food and water, with the police hoping she would break and confess to the crime. Etta remained in custody for a total of 4 days, without any communication or contact. It was during this time that a witness came forward to the LAPD and confessed to overhearing 21-year-old Louise Carnell Morgan, 21-year-old Spencer Nelson, and an unnamed 17-year-old man boasting about killing Melanie. They were subsequently arrested and confessed to the crime shortly after. Upon their confession, Etta Smith was released from custody. On December 21, 1980, the trio admitted to taking advantage of an opportunity at a stoplight. They forcibly entered Miss Ura's truck and directed her towards a desolate canyon located 15 miles north of her home. There, they subjected her to unspeakable acts of violence, robbing, assaulting, and brutally beating her as she begged for her life. The ultimate act of cruelty resulted in her death, caused by blunt force trauma inflicted by a large rock. The wheels of justice turned, leading to the conviction of these attackers who are now serving time in prison. The extraordinary circumstances surrounding Melanie Ura's case raise questions about the validity of information obtained through inexplicable means. To this day, there is no explanation as to how Etta witnessed and knew the location of a victim with whom she had no connection. A vision without justice would likely remain unfulfilled. Limited details are available regarding the motive behind targeting Melanie. Despite numerous theories, definitive answers remain elusive. As this captivating story comes to a close, we'd encourage you to participate in the discussion. Was Etta's premonition a remarkable stroke of luck or simply a random occurrence? How do you view the delicate balance between doubt and instinct that played out in Melanie's situation? Do you believe that psychics have a role to play in criminal investigations?